Take a seat, please. Oh. Again, could everyone please take their seats? Thank you. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and stay standing for a moment of silence? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Lauer,
Here.
Alderman Sage,
Here.
Alderman Malumboy,
Here.
Alderman Burgess,
Here.
Alderman Painter, Alderman Schmidt,
Here.
Alderman Black, Alderman Hallman, Alderman Fruin,
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. Okay. And we have 5 people for public comment. I believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I will, if you could come forward, you have up to 3 minutes. And just so that everyone understands, we don't engage in dialogue with public comment. If you really want real-time answers, you can come to the mayor's open house. It's every Friday from 4:30 to 5:30. We can get you answers and have more discussion at that time. But at this point, I'm going to start with Joe Haney and then Lee Utsi. Joe? Good evening.
Joe Haney, 9030 Hardesty Run. I'm here about the rental rates going up on registrations, and I'm against it because our costs seem to keep going up and up and up. Our taxes have risen, our insurances are rising, our waste has risen, our water. I received a letter from Bob Varicella, and I think the council probably has that letter also. And I concur with him on all that. We've got multiple charges for people owning rental properties, whether it's backflow tests or fire systems, and for elevators, and there's just multiple things, and they keep rising. And right now, we're looking at the sanitation district coming in, and they're going to boost those costs because they got a large improvement to do to their facilities, and we're not going to have any control over that. And I know that taxes have not gone up recently, but they've risen within the last 7-8 years, and rental is not rising. I feel that if we continue to raise the rates for rental, then we're going to lose renters. When you can afford to buy a house for what you're paying to rent, there is no reason to rent. And as far as I'm concerned, the problem owners should have to pay the bulk of it, and the people who take care of their properties and improve them and care about the people living there should not be penalized. Basically, that's about it.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next, Lee Utsi, then Judy Stearns.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm Lee Utsi, and I'm owner of Magic Bus Shuttles. And so I left a proposal that was given to me by the Assistant Chief Wheeler for new downtown shuttle hubs. You may remember I was up here before. I tried to make it very clear, need more parking. Well, they've tried to change it so that in one proposal, we would only have 4 spaces for buses. The other proposal that's on here, they would put us a block away and have people walk across a very busy thoroughfare out of line of sight of students, everybody. We asked for some compromise, a hybrid. It was absolutely rejected. So on page 3 in green, I've given an idea of where we could go. I was told that it would be a problem because then you would have to change the ordinance to park there, whereas they wouldn't have to change anything if we parked on Center Street, which is kind of counterproductive. I can tell you when I started, 10 years ago, there was just cabs downtown, and we would be down there till 3 o'clock or better. Lots of violence, the downtown nightlife project, documented damage, blah, 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 blah. We get them out of there by, it's 2:05 and they're gone. And this is, an unnamed source, somebody I talked to says that the buses are a problem. They wish they hadn't allowed them to get to where they are now, so now they're trying to push us somewhere else. We'll still be taking them downtown just like the cabs do. You just won't be able to get them out of the downtown for at a time. Spent Saturday night, freezing, bus is full. I tell the guy on the sidewalk, I'm full, go to the next bus. He responded by saying that he would cause me bodily harm and then spit in my face. Okay, so imagine a lot of cabs and Ubers on your 500 block of Main Street, on homecoming, graduation, ISU home games, and they're saying, we cannot overfill this cab, we cannot overfill this 15-passenger van. You need the buses. We're kind of a necessary evil that way. And we've got a plan here. Just need to work it a little bit more. So I just please ask, please don't pass anything that pushes the buses to Center Street, that pushes us to 4 spaces on Market Street. I think it would be disastrous. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Stearns, and after that, Christian Graham.
Thanks very much. I too would like to talk a little bit about landlords, echoing some of what Joe Haney has said. You obviously need revenue. Your budget isn't balanced, and if you really counted the Coliseum debt, the pension debt, and a lot of other things, wow, you really need revenue. And landlords seem like a really likely source and a good source. You can almost never go wrong by kind of doing something to landlords. The problem is, ultimately, you're taxing the working poor. Again, you raise the sales tax, entertainment, we all know the drill, the gas, on and on. And this, too, is a great burden on those who rent, some of which who could afford to buy, but they've chosen to rent, but many of which who couldn't. And they are the working poor, the indebted student, the entry level at even some of our big corporations cannot afford the high rents, and they're looking, because I obviously am in the business, talk to them all the time. They want that affordable apartment. And frankly, it is getting almost impossible to do that. And when that happens, the obvious answer is sell and get out of the business. I'd like to echo what Mr. Haney said. He's absolutely right. And also, what are we doing here? We're hiring someone, increasing the pension, increasing the administrative costs, on and on, putting someone on payroll to do this. And what are we getting for the taxpayers' money? Tenant safety? At least 2 of you, I think, on the board here are landlords. Let me ask you something. Would you, in your wildest imagination, want to jeopardize your tenant's safety? Can you even imagine not having working smoke detectors? No, you can't imagine. You wouldn't do it. It's beyond stupid. It's beyond your wildest imagination, or that of Mr. Haney or me or a lot of other wonderful, good landlords that are actually providing apartments, and especially in the case of a downtown apartment or Franklin Park apartment, you're doing it at much greater financial risk. It's far more expensive to renovate apartments downtown, buildings you don't even know what you're getting into. Historic Franklin Park buildings, or in the case of Grove Street, White Place, Clinton Boulevard. You don't know what you're getting into, and it takes a lot of money. I don't think any of you here are dependent on your landlord income, but some landlords are. And they will be, I don't think that has any, I think you're just doing is that an investment, that's fine. But landlords who depend on income are not going to be making it because rents are going down, vacancies are going up. But just to finish, I want to make sure that you actually know what normal is charging. There's been talk of, well, let's at least charge what, I mean, at least, my goodness, we can. So just to finish, normal charges $65 for a 4-unit building. That's total, okay? For that, they come and do an inspection, check the smoke detectors, and they're fine. You know, they're great. If you're going to register the properties and still charge $125 to inspect or something like that, I assure you, you're going to triple what normal charges. So I really, at the very least, have a meeting with the landlords. At the very, very least. Have a public meeting. Thank you.
Christian Graham and then Josh Schmidgall.
Good evening. I'm Chris Graham. I live at 2901 Keystone Road here in Bloomington. And I love living in Bloomington. But what I don't like is the continued taxing and spending and the new taxes. And I know that on your agenda tonight is to spend even more money. And so I thought I'd try something a little bit different. My public comment is in the spirit of a filibuster, and I thought that if I could even put off your reckless wild spending for 2 more minutes and 30 seconds, I would. So I'll start reading Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. I am Daniel. I am Sam. Sam I am. That Sam I am. That Sam I am. I do not like that Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like them here or there? I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Would you like them in a house? Would you like them with a mouse? I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Would you eat in a box? Would you eat them with a fox? Not in a box, not with a fox, not in a house, not with a mouse. I would not eat them here or there. I would not eat them anywhere. I would not eat green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Would you, could you, in a car, eat them, eat them? Here they are. I would not, could not, in a car. You may like them, you will see. You may like them in a tree. I would not, could not, in a tree, not in a car. You let me be. I do not like them in a box. I do not like them with a fox. I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. A train, a train, a train. Could you, would you, on a train? Not on a train, not in a tree, not in a car. Sam, let me be. I would not, could not, in a box. I would not with a fox. I will not eat them with a mouse. I will not eat them in a house. I will not eat them here or there. I will not eat them anywhere. I do not like them, Sam I am. And it goes on and on. And I know the spending won't stop, but I tried for my part for 3 minutes. Thank you.
1 second to spare. Josh Schmidgall.
Hi all, this is Fist Bump from the new News Talk and 98.3. This isn't time to celebrate Ian being back on the air from 6 to 9 every weekday on 98.3 FM. This is time to discuss the city of Bloomington. My message is simple and fair. The state of the city is weak. Taxes are too high, we're losing businesses, and things are getting serious. Please stop spending money. Again, please stop spending our money. It's not your money to spend. Fist bump over and out. Catch me tomorrow morning on the new News Talk 98.3, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go on to item 6A under appointments and recognitions. The first item is actually a fairly brief State of the City address. I gave my first in 2014, January 2015, and this is the third. And at least from where I sit, I'm very happy to report that the state of our city is very strong. Bloomington's assets are the envy of most cities throughout the United States and certainly throughout our state. We have the best educated, best trained workforce in downstate Illinois, low unemployment, the highest income levels, a great public school system, low crime rates, world-class institutions of higher learning, an award-winning public transit system, an active regional airport, obviously the sites of many corporate headquarters, our strategic location, regional broadband network, and actually the list can go on and on. We certainly are demonstrating that we have bragging rights to being the jewel of the Midwest. Now, we have had some serious challenges, of course, over the last year dealing with our city's finances and infrastructure, but we're meeting them and we're making progress for the future. One of the things to keep in mind, the city of Bloomington 6 years ago had about 750 full-time equivalent employees. Today we've got about 650. That doesn't mean with a workforce that we're down about 100 FTEs that there aren't ways to save money, but there aren't any obvious pots of gold out there. And I think the Budget Task Force found that this summer. So it's critical to keep in mind that these challenges didn't just appear overnight. We are dealing with them. Many citizens have expressed frustration at what seems to be the slow progress in dealing with some of these issues. And I have to say that I share that frustration. But it's important for us to recognize that we are making progress on many fronts. In government, transparency and openness, over the last year, we built upon our previous progress. The Illinois Policy Institute gave us an award for improved openness and transparency and our improved score in 2014. In 2015, we continued to improve. We now have a 97% rating and are working toward 100% for website transparency. We're actually the fifth best city in Illinois, and we're the number one in central Illinois. We had a Bloomington single semester, if you will, of Bloomington Citizens Academy in 2014, and we expanded that to graduate two more classes of participants, getting many of our citizens inside City Hall so that they can begin to see exactly where their tax money goes. The mayor's open houses have continued to be what I think are probably the best bi-weekly opportunities for direct citizen participation and involvement, and again, problem solving in real time. The pursuit of open government has been something we've succeeded at, and I think we're absolutely a model for other cities to follow. In fixing our streets and infrastructure, an obvious source of contention for all of us who drive on our streets. The city has completed the street resurfacing from the first $10 million street resurfacing bond that was passed 2 years ago. We finished it over this past season. And now we're poised to move forward with Streets 2.0, a much larger bond that has a dedicated revenue source to fund the repairs. There's also been great progress in developing our capital improvement plans over the last year and for other long-term needs such as sewers and storm drainage. Not hot, sexy items, but things that are critical, and we have to move forward, and we are. The city's been moving ahead with critical projects also like the Hamilton Road extension that promises to be a major improvement in our community's transportation network. You'd be able to go from Corporate South in State Farm to the interstates on a 4-lane highway and never even go on Veterans. So for lots of reasons, these are some critical projects that we're moving on. In growing the local economy and job creation, an extremely important function of government, we had the major setback of Mitsubishi's closing over the last year, but there have been some notable successes as well. We've had the opening of Hy-Vee in to say the least, underutilized Lakewood Plaza. We now have plans in another underutilized strip mall, Colonial Plaza, for Dick's Sporting Goods and other stores to move in. We had the announcement of Green Top Grocery that will be part of a first multi-million-dollar investment in Bloomington on Constitution Trail. Obviously, there's no shortage of those multi-million-dollar investments in Normal. We're getting there. We've also had the remaking of our movie theaters. We had the opening of an IMAX at Galaxy and the $6 to $7 million renovation retrofitting of the old Palace into the new Ovation. It's certainly a very exciting business model. Theaters have to reinvent themselves in the age of Netflix and Hulu, and we've certainly been very helpful in working with them to make that happen. In our downtown, which of course is our cultural, historic core, we've had the long-awaited opening of the Route 66 Visitors Center in the McLean County Visitors Center. It took a year to get that, to get the money, and then took about another 8 or 9 months to complete the construction. But that's really critical, not just for our downtown, because once that happened, we had a dramatic increase in the number of people, private investors who are willing to invest in our downtown in a variety of ways. But we have not been taking full advantage of our assets, particularly along Route 66. People have been going in, until this past summer at least, from Pontiac to Atlanta, Illinois. Pontiac, nice city, but the size of one of our wards, to a city, Atlanta, the size of one of our 52 voting precincts, and they've been kicking our butts in the Route 66 Visitors Center traffic. So we're definitely with the opening of this and improved signage and many other things, really this is going to be an important catalyst for our entire community. And at the time that Green Top Grocery, the project opens, it won't just be a grocery and other types of retail for our community, but we now have the Looking for Lincoln exhibit in the Visitor Center that sends people to the David Davis Mansion, and we know that there's national and international traffic that'll be economic spillovers for our community as part of that really critical project. Now, at this point, actually, we've got several possibilities of proposals that could be major game changers for our downtown and, frankly, for the economic vitality of our entire community. There are no communities, no cities, major cities in the United States or metro cities of the 360 that are thriving who have neglected their downtowns. That's part of their core, and that's where the action is. In the 21st century, we're not going to achieve our progress by building more strip malls or investing in that way. We need to invest and put emphasis in our inner core and our downtown. And by that, I want to also make clear, once again, that at least one of the major proposals that would link the Coliseum to the Visitor Center, an entire block, an underperforming block, would not require us to spend $1 out of our current general fund. There is no money budgeted, no money the city managers. I have asked to have budgeted not $1 for downtown renovations for a conference center or a hotel project. It might be there. The project would have to pay for itself based on the fruits of the investment itself. Right? We're getting no hotel motel taxes on that site right now. We're getting only a little over $4,000 in property taxes. If someone wants to invest $45 million, their property taxes will go up, and that can pay for a bond for our skin in the game, which would probably be something like a parking garage across from the Coliseum. That would have lots of benefits. It would not only give us more gigs in the Coliseum, reduce its red ink, but it would make downtown more of a destination and get us past a tipping point. Other critical areas that we've made progress in over the last year are the establishment, of course, of the Bloomington City Administrative Court so that we can more effectively and efficiently enforce our building codes. Bloomington's also been on the cutting edge of dealing with alternative vehicles for hire, such as Uber. Since the passage of that ordinance, actually, I've had large numbers of mayors and managers from throughout the country contact me to say, okay, how did you deal with these very same issues? So while we're continuing to face important challenges ahead, they also represent exciting opportunities for progress. I'm totally confident that we can and will come together in order to be able to make progress for the future and to make Bloomington an even better place to live, work, and play. Thank you very much. And I want to move now on to the appointment of Jim Fruin to the Bloomington Normal Area Economic Development Council, the EDC. There has been a major restructuring of the EDC board, and I've asked Jim to continue to serve. He and I have both been on the board. They are reducing the board size, and Jim has had a long experience, obviously not just on the council, but at State Farm and as a realtor, and so he certainly is well poised, I think, to represent us. Jim, thank you for your willingness to serve. And next we have the 2015 McLean County Household Hazardous Waste Collection, and we have a presentation by the Ecology Action Center. Michael, good to see you.
Thank you. I do have a little presentation, but it just hits the highlights of what's actually already in your agenda packet, so I'm not going to worry with the technology here. But I do appreciate this opportunity to just present to you the successes and results of our household hazardous waste effort here in the community. You may recall the Ecology Action Center. We act as a environmental agency here for Bloomington, for Normal, for McLean County. One of our roles is to provide for household hazardous waste collection for local residents. Traditionally, this has been funded by the state of Illinois through the Illinois EPA. As you might suspect, that funding has become very infrequent and irregular at this point. Outside of the IEPA funding for occasional collection events, the only other alternative for proper, safe, and legal disposal of household hazardous waste by residents are 4 permanent collection sites, none of which are anywhere near Central Illinois. There's 3 in the city of Chicago, 1 in Rockford, so obviously not convenient for our residents. So with the lack of options for proper disposal of hazardous waste for our residents, in 2012, the Ecology Action Center, working in partnership with local governments, did create a public-private partnership to provide for locally funded household hazardous waste. This was very successful in 2012, so building upon that one-time event, in 2014, an intergovernmental agreement was created between Bloomington, Normal, McLean County, and the Ecology Action Center to provide for every other year hazardous waste collection events funded largely by the local governments, but still expecting a certain amount of private fundraising by the Ecology Action Center. So the first collection event under this new agreement was this past fall, October 2015. It was actually wildly successful. 1,600 cars came through the event. Over 2,000 households participated. A record-breaking 27,000 gallons of household hazardous waste was collected at this event, in addition to 20,000 pounds of e-waste. This event cost a total of $150,000. Local governments had funded us in the amount of $140,000. We had been fundraising for a few months and had raised another $42,000, which actually leaves us with about $32,000 of dedicated funding that is now earmarked for the next hazardous waste collection event, which is already planned for the fall of 2017. This in addition to, of course, about 100 volunteers putting in a lot of hard work, about 300 hours. The event itself, while I'm saying it costs about $150,000, the majority of that did go to hiring of a specialized contractor to come collect, handle, transport, and ultimately dispose of those 27,000 gallons of household hazardous waste. So that was about $135,000 that went to that. The rest of it largely went to marketing, promotion of the event, and a small amount for supplies. The materials collected at the event, the largest amount of materials, or the largest cost for materials and disposal, was for pesticides. After that, followed by oil-based paints. The largest volume of materials collected was oil-based paints, followed then by pesticides. So over the past 15 years, we've actually, and you'll see this chart in your packet in the report, we've collected an increasing amount of household hazardous waste, with this year being by far the greatest amount ever collected. We've been able to increase the amount of materials collected each time with this increased help and this unique public-private partnership between the local governments and the Ecology Action Center. It's through this partnership that we'll be able to provide for household hazardous waste collection in the absence of the traditional state funding. And in fact, this unique partnership allows us to collect more in that our entire fundraising effort, which lasts for months, becomes an awareness effort in itself, therefore increasing attendance, increasing the amount of materials collected. So looking forward, we are already planning the fall 2017 household hazardous waste collection event. We are working on applying for the traditional state funding, even though it is unlikely that that will be provided anytime in the near future. I would like to make the council aware there are occasionally bills entered in the Illinois General Assembly for what's called product stewardship programs, such as for product stewardship for oil paints or other paint products. If there is legislation like this, these programs are important to support, much like the e-waste program that's been running in Illinois for a few years now. These things can help provide for more reliable, more convenient disposal of some of these hazardous waste items, and at the same time help greatly reduce the cost of these occasional household hazardous waste collection events. And bigger picture yet, just like to remind you, we are working on efforts towards a permanent household hazardous waste collection facility. One is greatly needed in Central Illinois. So we're working towards that to bring one hopefully to Central Illinois, if not hopefully right here to Bloomington Normal. So thank you for your support of this important program. Any
Thank
questions?
you. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're going to move right along here to the consent agenda. Are there any items that people would want, any of our council members would want to remove from the consent agenda for separate discussion or vote? Seeing none is, let me get a motion first. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Oh, moved by, is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to the consent agenda and the regular agenda both, I have not received any monies or financial benefits from any of the individuals or organizations referenced in these agenda items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point then, any other points? Let me start the vote. Let's see. Okay. Okay. All right. 7 ayes, no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Okay. And we move right along then to our regular agenda. And the first regular agenda is item 8A, is consideration of adopting an ordinance amending the Bloomington City Code, Chapter 45, the rental inspection program. And at this point, we have a brief presentation, and I just want to give a special shout-out. It was in the paper, but I wanted to give another special shout-out to Alderwoman Schmidt and Alderwoman Burgess for taking the lead on this. And again, I appreciate your innovation. Tom, you have some words of wisdom for us.
Well, I have some words. That is for sure. And I'm talking over just a little bit of a cold, so I'll do the best that I can here. This first item is consideration of an ordinance that would increase the, it would change the city code regarding the rental inspection registration fee program. The intention is to provide the revenue needed to hire a second inspector to allow the city to inspect at a frequency that is closer, somewhat closer to the rate required in the ordinance, which is an annual inspection. Currently, we're inspecting a location about once every 3 years. 3 years is a pretty long time. Takes a long time. A lot of problems can accumulate in that time frame. Plus, it doesn't allow us to get back soon enough to really affirm that a landlord or a building has, in fact, stayed in compliance for that period. It's just a long time for everyone, I think. The current system is a two-tiered system that includes $30 annually, a $30 registration fee annually for properties that do not have problems, and a $130 per year fee for properties with issues. In addition to that, there's a $25 per unit fee. That would be changed to a $65 per year fee across the board, a single-tier system, plus $5 per unit after the first two. And that, just to clarify, that would be the sum total of the cost. It would include the inspection, the annual inspection. That would bring us, like I say, to about a year, every year and a half or so. I'd be happy to answer any questions while I try to find my place here.
Okay. Alderwoman Burgess?
I have some questions. I wanted to start with, because sometimes I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding about what it means to be a failing versus a passing grade in terms of this particular program, just to give people an idea of what kind of issues we're dealing with, or is this going to get into what you're about to?
I can do that in two ways. I brought some pictures, and and you can pass these around. I'm not distributing them in any particular order.
Okay. Please.
We'll make sure we're not missing anybody. Here, you can have a little note.
Is the roof cat in here?
I'm sorry?
Is the roof cat one of these photos?
There is a picture of a cat peeking out of a hole in a roof, yes. There it is.
Yeah.
Looking out of the roof. Oh,
No, I think it's probably worth clarifying that these are rental properties. There are
Right.
people living in these properties.
Not just the cat.
Yeah.
not just a cat.
So,
And that was, there actually was a hole in the roof there. It's not a cat sitting on top of the,
and that brings me to one of my questions. So, and I'll just use some comparisons. So if you inspect a property and the smoke detector needs new batteries, that's not a failing grade, right?
the answer is, in that particular case, it depends. If we have a building and it has a dozen smoke detectors and all the batteries are out, that's kind of a sign that there's a problem. So in that case, it could be a life safety issue. If we have the same kind of place and there's one battery out, two batteries out, it's considered minor, because obviously they are tending to some of them, to most of them at that time. Other examples of life safety type issues, and all you need under our program is a single life safety issue to fail, and those are considered serious enough to do that, is when your furnace, may start to rust out. We see that kind of thing. That indicates some problems. Mold is a serious issue. If we see lead paint, those are just some examples. Bad wiring, electrical wiring, obviously, is a fire hazard. So those are some examples of some serious issues that we might see. The other aspect of this program, though, is that you could have three or more, minor issues, and I'll put minor in quotes. For a lot of people, these are major issues. It really depends on a perspective to a certain extent, but minor issues that might include something like the one malfunctioning smoke detector. It might include, these are all non-structural, obviously, locks that don't lock. It could include peeling paint. There's a picture of linoleum that's been peeled off of the floor, and there are closet doors that don't close properly, that are off one hinge, things like that in fact can contribute to a problem, and certainly the overall quality of the living there. Rubbish and debris is another example. Shingles that aren't, where we don't see evidence of leaks yet. Those are just some examples that I pulled together.
Yeah. And okay, let's get more along to the actual proposal this evening. How does the proposal this evening compare to other communities in our area?
Well, the $65 compares favorably to other communities in the area. Peoria, for example, has a $50 fee, which is more than our $30. Urbana actually has a couple different tiers, but their multiple family is at $65 per year as well. In Chicago area, it tends to be a little bit higher. Evanston, they have a range of prices, but it's fees, but their median price is $100 a year. And certainly, if you go outside the state, and I didn't bother to look at the city of Chicago. I apologize if you're interested in that number. If you look outside of the state, the fees are generally consistently above $100. Now, I haven't done a kind of a program analysis of any of those. I simply looked at fees.
But during this process, you did take a look at what other communities are charging, and based on that, as well as the information about what are required to make this program self-supportive and to bring it in line with the ordinance, that you also made sure that it was comparable to what other communities are paying.
Yes, I felt that the $65 was not out of line with other communities in the area.
Okay, and I think that oftentimes the assumption is that in terms of these fees, they are a cost that landlords will bear, and the landlord business model is typically to pass those along to their tenants. That's how they make the business work.
I think we heard that tonight, yes.
if that is indeed the truth, correct, and that these changes will be passed along to the tenants, have you made a calculation onto what that impact would be on our renters?
I do this pretty frequently because sometimes the $65 doesn't immediately hit home with how it might get passed along or how it might get absorbed by some landlords. And just to put it in perspective, the $30, one of the two tiers that we charge now, it gets us just over, for a typical, and there, of course, there's never any typical, but let's assume a building with 4 units. That actually is pretty typical in this community as an average. If you look at that, the fee works out to about 56 cents or 62 cents per unit each month. Very minimal increase to accommodate the current fee if you're a good landlord and your properties are in good shape. If your properties are in not so good shape and you have to pay the higher fee, that comes closer to $3.75 for the same apartment building per month for each unit.
That's with a landlord who has been neglectful.
Correct, and that's still really a bargain, because if you think about spending $40 a month as opposed to, or $40 a year on a unit as opposed to fixing anything, it's hard to compare. That number doesn't come close to what it costs to make these repairs. It's hard to find a repair that's under 40 bucks a year. This would put us at $1.56. The $65 would put us at $1.56 each month per unit. That and that cost is either absorbed or passed along. Again, a very minimal amount. It's simply there to help pay for the program and the inspections. And the issue here is, again, the inspections today are every 3 years, roughly. And a lot can happen in those 3 years versus adding an inspector where we can look at perhaps every year and a half at a maximum.
And the ordinance actually calls for inspections once a year. So is it fair to say that in terms of the proposal for this evening, this is really the minimum we can do to bring the program in line with the expectations that have been created?
I think we're doing the minimum we can do. It doesn't come close
to make the program functional under the ordinance.
Right. Part of the issue is, I know that the program was changed a few years ago, and a number of properties were taken out of the annual inspection process. The problem is that the remaining properties, most of them will never leave the program. There is always a life safety issue found or numerous minor issues found. So we pretty much know the basket of rentals that we're dealing with that would stay with us from this point forward. And we're estimating, about every year and a half, which is a lot better. Many of them will see an inspector once a year. Some will see them every other year in that case.
That actually brings me to my very last question. With regard to fines and penalties and making the landlords who have no interest or lack the ability to come in line with our property safety codes, that's not really an issue this evening. That is something we can discuss at a later date about whether or not the fines and penalties we are assessing are effective. Is that correct?
Discuss anything when you're ready to discuss.
Well,
yes.
I think my point
Yes.
is that was a poorly worded
This is
question.
simply a fee change that we're looking at to accomplish a specific purpose.
Okay, which is the baseline for this program. When we're looking at additional enforcement efforts above and beyond that, that will be a different conversation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Wamboy?
Sure.
And then Schmidt.
So, Tom, can you walk me through an example? So let's say you have a 4-unit building. Just walk me through the whole thing, how it's the actual amount that somebody would have to pay.
$65 for the building, which absorbs a good amount of the time that's involved in preparing to and from, preparing the reports afterwards. If it's a 4-unit building, the first 2 units are, are free. That's our sale today. It comes with the $65. The other 2 units would be charged another $5. From an inspector standpoint, once you're there and you're going in unit to unit, you tend to see either consistent issues or consistently no issues. So those inspections are pretty quick. They average out, obviously. If you walk into a unit that has a lot of problems, it's infestation. There was a photograph of infestation. That's obviously going to take a little bit more time. Certainly the hoarding cases take some time. But for the most part, you can see consistently the same issues in unit to unit to unit if you're going to see them. And so those can be done pretty quickly. And from a report preparation standpoint, it takes no time almost.
And how will you accommodate for growth in the future?
Well, we believe that these costs actually reflect our costs in going out on the average inspection. So to accommodate for growth,
And I'm talking about there might be more apartment buildings down the line.
Sure.
3, 4, 5 years. So are you thinking of...
And currently, this reflects our costs.
If we had to add someone else,
I understand. Okay. Right. Well, we would start to lose our ability to do annual trips every year and a half, whatever it might be. And we'd have to take another look at it at that point.
Alderwoman Schmidt and then Fruin.
Thank you. And I will preface my questions by saying I've dealt with the world before the rental inspection program, and it is very effective. It has been effective. I'm sorry it's slowed down, but it has been a boon, particularly to our older neighborhoods, I think, and to tenants that I have seen over the years that are probably the more vulnerable people in our community. I want to follow up on Mboka's question because I hadn't quite thought about the fees this way. So currently, if I have a 4-unit apartment building, I'm paying $35 a year.
If you're good, you're paying $30 a year.
Okay, in the packet it says a $35 annual fee.
That's wrong. I apologize.
It's 30?
It's 30.
Okay, all right, so $30. Plus if I have a 4-unit, I'm also paying $100, or am I paying $50 more?
If it's 4-unit and everything's clean, you're good, it's $30 flat fee.
Period.
It's a registration fee.
Okay,
There's no
all right, thank you.
associated with it. There are no inspections.
So if I'm a passing landlord, then I'm paying the $35 for my building, and then with this one I might pay, for a 4-unit, I'd pay $85.
Correct.
Right, okay.
$75.
Just want to make sure. Okay.
$75 because we are maintaining the gift of the first 2 units.
Because the first 2 are included. Okay, thank you. All right, just wanted to get the math straight here. So we, because we're slowed down enough, we really don't have a lot of data yet on, I would say current data on our apartments and their status. I mean, we say we have 85% failing, and we're just getting through them once every...
Right, that number has actually been going up. I've been saying 85% for some time, and that, again, what we're finding is that of the buildings that are left over, those buildings very consistently have problems. So it's closer to 90%.
Right. Okay, and so just thinking about the how this might roll out, when does this kick in? If we pass this tonight, when does this kick in? And when, I think as a landlord, I think we just paid our inspection fees for this next year.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Or is that just luck of the draw?
Most landlords would have paid already. There are some where the bills are out, the invoices are out already, and certainly we would honor all of that. What this would affect, I believe this takes effect 10 days after it would pass, if it were to pass, and it would apply to any new buildings that came in, new rentals that came in,
So
and then of course to everybody else come fall when we send out the new invoices.
Okay. And just a couple of more questions or observations. As we've built this program and massaged it to what it is, we've had good relationships and good conversations with our landlords. And I think one of the things we heard this evening and some feedback that I think we've individually received is maybe why we didn't have a conversation prior to this particular ordinance, or when will we have enough data that we can have a meaningful conversation with our landlords? I think it's a good, valuable relationship that your department and landlords have, so I want to make sure we're continuing to build on that.
Well, I think we've got good data. I mean, obviously, the program is always evolving. We've got good data for what, in terms of how we're handling costs today versus revenues, and then what it would cost to add another inspector to help reduce the lag time between inspections. In terms of reaching out, certainly, as with any fee program, it's not bad to ask others, but they're not, as you heard tonight, I mean, a lot of these costs are passed straight on to the tenants, so maybe we should be talking to tenants. I mean, there are a number of different people who are involved in that, and so to only talk to landlords seems fairly limited. And that's just my opinion.
Well, and that sort of leads me to my other question about, we have the Property Maintenance Review Board, which has landlords, tenants, and at-large citizens on it, and I think they're kind of in a limbo right now because we have the administrative court. But I think we don't have to solve this tonight either, but I think we need some clarity about what the role of that commission is. I think you've appointed people to them, and I think they haven't met for a year or so.
They haven't met since I've been here, at
And-
least
and-
that I'm aware of.
And finally, just maybe a suggestion as much as a question. I don't think that we ever connect with Section 8 and the inspections that they do. And I think there's I rent to Section 8, and I think there's a lot of crossover, and there might be a cost savings there.
I would say that our costs relate very specifically to the fee that is being suggested. So, and that's regardless of whether it's a luxury apartment or.
Right. Yeah. I see Section 8 inspectors come in and they do very much the same thing. So maybe we can support each other in some way.
See.
Alderman Fruin, and then Sage and Lauer.
Tom, just a couple comments. While I've been on the council for a while, inspections and so forth are probably not my expertise, and I don't have any experience there, so I rely on the rest of the council that does. I don't know what everybody's crystal ball is, but I think I've heard some conversation about what's this going to look like in the out years, and it seems to me, I'm not as close to the universities as maybe others are up here, but it seems like maybe the universities might be getting out of the housing business, decommissioning their dorms or so forth and getting students into apartments. Not all those students live in Normal, so I think this program is extremely critical, and it leads me to the comment about taxation and fees and so forth, and everybody is asking, what do I get for my money? And they always say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'm glad you brought these pictures. I don't know how we get that on our website or how we communicate that, but if you look at these pictures, then you understand why government has to do what we do, because not every landlord's the best landlord in town, and that's the struggle we have when we're doing this modeling that you have, is we've got some great landlords that are very responsible and some that are not. So how do you draw up a program that takes into account both sides? But I don't think there's a perfect model and a perfect ordinance, so I'm always a fan for supporting what's been worked on to this point, and then we can tweak it as we go. So thanks for all your work.
Alderman,
I would just, if I can just kind of add one thing to that, because you mentioned the photographs, and our assistant city manager has gone on a couple ride-alongs, my rental inspectors of late, rental inspector over the last month or so, and He's still speechless over what he saw. But if you do have questions, he is available as a resource as well.
Yeah, if I could add one thing there, just while you're saying that. Anyone who's unfamiliar with the program and unfamiliar with some of the buildings that are inspected, I would encourage any alder person to spend 2 hours with an inspector going and looking at some of these properties, and your vision of the whole thing will be entirely altered, and you'll understand it in detail. Thank you.
I guess he wasn't speechless.
Okay. Alderman Sage and Lauer.
Let me start off by saying thanks for the presentation and also a quick shout out, a thank you to, I think, Amelia and Karen. I know you guys have been involved, and like Jim, you have more expertise in this area than I do. A couple things I like about the program as presented. First of all, it incentivizes maintaining good rental properties, and I think there's always goodness in that. The other thing is that it may be related to Jim's question, is, you know, what am I getting for the money? It's back to this principle of that whether you couch it in these terms or not, the people who are consuming city services are asked to pay for those services as opposed to some subsidy from the general fund or something like that. Let me follow up specifically, because I think it was mentioned. I'm a little bit puzzled as to why the Property Management Review Board was not included. I'm looking at their description of their board on our city website, and it reads in part, and conduct public hearings to provide recommendations for code changes related to Chapter 45 to the council. Clearly, this is a recommended change to Chapter 45, and I'm curious as to why they were not involved in this process.
Well, they're not required to be involved in fee changes, which are generally seen as the purview of this body. And I think that's what we were looking at. To have a discussion over...
Is a change to the fee, Tom, a change to the code?
Well, it's a change to the code, obviously.
Okay.
It wasn't, in the past we've included them because it was a change to the program itself, and how the program would be carried out. Here we're simply looking at a change in the number, a
Right.
number, a set of numbers.
But it is a change to the code.
Correct.
Okay. So that's why, again, I haven't heard an explanation as though they were kind of overlooked. I mean, I'm thinking about in terms of if we were going to have a conversation about raising the liquor license fee, that would come through the Liquor Commission. If we were going to have a conversation about raising, annexation fees or zoning, I mean, that would come through. I'm just a little bit puzzled and read concerned into that as to why the Property Management Review Board was circumvented in this situation.
Again, I saw it simply as a fee change.
Okay, but it's a change to the code.
Sure.
And the description of that board says any code changes related to Chapter 45. So, okay, thank you.
And just in terms of liquor licenses, like, for example, we're probably going to, mostly it's a council, this will be a council action. I mean, at least as I would see this, I don't know why this particular situation happened, but I wouldn't necessarily feel obligated to have the Liquor Commission go through that if the council were doing the legwork. Or, as in the Liquor Commission, if the council has a clear direction to say, hey, this is what the council wants to do, just FYI. But anyway, I think it's a...
But the council didn't give clear direction on this, right, on this particular...
Yeah,
I'm just trying to highlight,
right.
There's a disconnect here in the process.
Right.
And again, if we want to be transparent, if then let's clarify that and say, except for fee and changes, it says a code change to Chapter 45. This is a code change to Chapter 45. Is my point. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Lauer?
Well, thank you for all your work here. I'm sure you've got a lot of effort involved here, and I know you've got some experience in the area. I know that you don't have experience with Bloomington, though, and this has been an ongoing conversation that we've had, and Karen Schmidt's been at the heart of that, and Judy Stearns was for years and years as well. I don't think, and I agree with David, I think that we had that commission and we should have run it past them, and I think we should have had an open conversation with our public. And we have not done that. And I'm hearing that from our landlords. I'm hearing that from our renters. I actually have a bit of experience as a renter. I know Scott rents now. I own my home now, but there was a period of time where I was kind of in a transition and kind of working near the place that I wanted to live and living in a east side apartment. One of the things that we're forgetting here is that the open market does dictate a fair amount of productivity from our landlords. The open market does dictate. When I moved into my efficiency apartment, I picked it apart. And I actually knew the doctor that owned it, and he wasn't charging me a large fee. But I had issues with some of the issues that I found before I moved in, including, it was a furnished apartment, including the furniture. I made him remove some of it. Okay? And that is, that's an open market model. And so it isn't all up to the government to handle all of this, and it shouldn't be. And that's the major problem that I've got with this is that we're making a major change to the fee structure for everyone that's in the rental market, and that's going to be borne by the consumer ultimately in most of these cases. Okay, at a time at which most of us cannot afford it, and there's a fairly large number of folks that are renting that can't afford it right now, and I've got a real problem with that. And so we're punishing the mass when there's actually a small group of landlords and maybe folks that really don't care too much about the quality of their life that are putting up with it. I would think that the fine and the expense should be borne 80 or 90% by those folks to try to get them to come into compliance rather than spreading the expense over the mass. I think that probably a random check once every 3 years with the landlord not really knowing when you might come in would be a fairly viable thing and not be nearly as expensive as hiring another employee. We've got a number of landlords, probably the large majority, that are very conscientious, and I'm sure don't have very many things that are outstanding because of the open market and because we have a discerning a renter market here that will demand of them. And most of them probably are going to want to provide a very quality product anyway. So I've got a problem with raising the fees on the mass, especially at a time at which folks can't afford it. And I keep coming back to the affordability issue, and so for that reason, again, I'm going to be voting no tonight on this, and I'm going to make a little statement here because I'm getting a little heat from some of the media. I realize that there's been coverage of some of the local media that accuse me of voting no for everything. I would just like to clarify that I vote no for bad ideas, and this right now, as it's modeled, is a bad idea because it's hurting some of those within our community that can least afford it. Okay? It's an affordability issue at a time at which they can't deal with it. And so, yes, we probably do need to tweak the program that we've got. I understand that. And we need to be more effective, and it's a difficult time. Maybe, some of this, I could live with a little bit, but a $65 over a 30, that's a big change for
96
most.
cents per unit.
We have, if you're dealing with a large complex and a quote unquote full-time professional manager, it's one thing.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask us to move on.
I understand. Okay. But I think this is important because people are going to hurt over this, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to cost people money, and they don't have it.
You don't think it would hurt if we don't do anything at all?
Well, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do anything at all, but I think that there is a very, very fine line when you're talking about folks' rent here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman Black and then Schmidt, and then actually I think we're about a half an hour over, but of course this is an important issue.
Sure is. Thank you. And thank you, Tom. I have a question and then some comments.
So right now, what we have is an ordinance that we are not following because we're not allocating the resources to that ordinance.
Well, we do not have the staff capable of carrying out the ordinance.
Right. So with a 30,000-foot view, we have an ordinance that we are not following because we haven't dedicated the resources.
Correct.
Okay. So, and you may not be able to answer this right now, what would we need to ratchet that ordinance down to so that if we made no changes to the fees, what would that program look like? Is it a once every 3
Well, we
years?
could maintain the program as it is today, which is an inspection every 3 years.
Right. But our ordinance doesn't call for that, right?
Calls for an annual inspection.
Right. So we'd have to change that
Right.
threshold down to 3 years. Okay. So that answers my question. From where I sit, two-thirds of Ward 7 rents, myself included, and you run the gamut of great rental units to really horrible rental units. And people have invited me over to see some of the things that they've had to go with. I mean, you've taken some phone calls from me, emails late at night from folks that have gone through some real horrible situations with their landlord. I also see many calls where it's simple stuff that has been neglected for so long. I see calls from homeowners who want to sell their house but can't because the property next door is just trash. Why can't the city do something about this? There are some really key points where people demand more from us, and to me, this is a basic city service that we provide. The calls I'm getting they're coming after me because my bushes in my front don't look nice. They're coming after us because there's a cat peeking its head out of the roof. If I had my way, I mean, every dilapidated property would be putting up the name and address of the landlord and showing a slideshow of the horrible pictures that go on. Because these are the calls that I deal with. This is the reality that we have. And to me, going back to the Property Maintenance Review Board, I've not interacted with them since I've been on the council. Their feedback would be welcome. To me, about July timeframe this was originally brought up, so we've been talking about this for a while. I know it's been in the media. I posted stuff up to my Facebook. Every single neighborhood association meeting that I go to, every single one, without exception, somebody says, what are they going to do about this property? Where is it in the process? People will post pictures to Facebook. This is my neighbor. Why isn't the city doing something about this? And it's tough to just throw up your hands and say, we're getting there. Yes, there's a process, but people are demanding us to do something in these cases. And Tom came to the Northwest Neighborhood Association, 2-3 months ago, and we walked through this program, and the feedback was, people were astounded that we're not getting to these more frequently. And I get that there are some landlords that this is a source of income for them, and I get that there's a concern there, but for a long time, I got the sense from people that I spoke with from the landlord's end and the tenant's end that there are good landlords and there are bad landlords. And to me, they're just landlords. You're in the business of renting property to people, to consumers, and part of that service is a public good that goes along with it. There's life safety issues. There's the cosmetic look of, do you keep your house in order, and are you accountable for that? And it's tough for us because a lot of times we have people who are either living in some other state where we can't get a hold of them, or we have, just runs the gamut of everything that you can imagine. So to me, I want to adequately fund the programs that we are involved in. I don't think this is a major step in a direction where we're going to be coming down hard on people. I think it's just giving the resources to the program to see it flourish. We heard some wide conversation when we were talking about the administrative court of the horrible things that could come out of that. It's going to be socialism run amok. It's going to be the government telling us you can't put that statue outside. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that. And the interactions I've had with people who've either been a part of that process or who have benefited from that process have been overwhelmingly positive. So one of my goals as an alderman, I've talked about this before, is to put the resources where I'm talking about. And this is something that I've talked about when I ran for the seat, that I continue to hear feedback about. And to me, it's a simple, let's fund it appropriately or scale back the program, which I think would be significantly more unpopular and not meet the needs of our residents. And I'm here to meet the needs of our residents. Thank you.
Alderman Schmidt and then Burgess. And I'll ask for a motion if you're...
Sure, and I just want to follow up actually on what Scott said. So we have a 3-year program, and there's an 85% failing rate, so I don't think we have a program, and I would like to see us fund the program. I will just repeat that I'm very sensitive to making sure that we're listening to our landlords as business owners. And I would like to see a commitment maybe to us working very closely with the Property Maintenance Review Board, maybe as the catalyst for conversations about how we can begin to incentivize even further the good landlords and make, as some people said this evening, and make the landlords that are causing your department the most work pay the most money, and maybe, and gather in some data from administrative court. This launches us in the right direction, but I really value the relationship that the city and the landlords have built up together, and we have some very good, strong, knowledgeable landlords with some great ideas. So I really hope we commit to doing that. Thank you.
Alderwoman Burgess.
I think that's a point very well taken by Karen. I personally view this as a first step, that we are not done with our work at the end of the day today. Even if we pass this particular ordinance, this is a good first step in terms of making sure that the rental properties in our community are of a decent quality and that they are safe for the people living there. I did want to address a couple of concerns about process, because I think it's very important that we're very open about the process. And if individuals feel that the process can be approved, that's well taken, and I'd love to hear that. As Scott noted, we began talking about this in July. Karen and I brought this subject up, I think, during Alderman comments, that we had this program that was underfunded, and as a result, it was creating a public safety issue and a property quality issue within our community. And at that point, we began the community conversation about how we could address that. And we began working very closely with Tom in the Community Development Department to look at what that means. And some of the items that we reviewed included the minutes from the Property Maintenance Review Board public forum that was held when the program was undergoing much more comprehensive changes a few years ago, to get a feeling for what comments were made then, to see if there was anything that we were missing. We also did some public outreach through media. Like Scott, I've personally been out there talking about this, asking for people's input, and I believe Karen also has been doing the same thing to begin to get an idea of where we might go. And just to summarize, based on that, before I move on, and this may be a philosophical difference, but in terms of the Property Maintenance Review Board, I'm very happy we have that and we can rely on that. But from my perspective, they are a tool to be used by council. They are not a substitute for council. And I think we should rely on them when we believe that we need to bring in and widen that net for additional conversation. But I do not think, and I've reviewed the language of the ordinance several times, there's nothing in there that would lead me to believe that we are required to go through them. And I personally believe, similar to Tom, that in this instance, when we're talking about a simple mathematical calculation, where opinion doesn't play into it, but a simple calculation as to how do we make this program self-sustaining and meet the ordinance that's already on the books, that there was no need for a prolonged conversation or for a public hearing. And if other council members feel that that was in error, please feel free to reach out to me. But I hope it does not delay us from taking action tonight. But I would like to summarize in terms of the feedback I have received. I received overwhelming support in favor of this program. The emails and conversations that I have had are, fix this program. We need this in our community. It is shameful that our community has allowed these properties to be unsafe. And so overwhelming support. However, I also heard from landlords, and I think it's no secret, that some number of landlords do not like this program or do not believe that it is necessary. And there's always two arguments that come up time and time again, and we saw these with the last public hearing, which is, number one, complaint-based systems work, and we need to go back to that. And number two, if we institute these fees, people will go out of business. We know both of those things are not true. Complaint-based systems have not traditionally worked in our community. Otherwise, we would not be in the position that we are today, where we have cats peeking out of roofs. And number two, these fees are relatively minor. And I know that will raise some concerns among landlords, but I feel confident in saying that it will not drive anyone out of business, because the fees are substantially the same in the town of Normal. And I spoke to the town of Normal when they passed the substantially same fees. They got the same concerns, that people would go out of business, they wouldn't be able to make a living, and as far as they know, not a single landlord has gone out of business. So I appreciate those concerns. We've done our homework, and I do not believe that this will be a detriment to our community. Quite to the contrary. The consequence and the penalty for doing nothing tonight is much, much too high. We have I think I feel comfortable in saying that we have perhaps hundreds of people in our community living in conditions that are not safe, that you and I would not personally want to live in. We have the ability to fix that, to make this program self-sustaining at a very minimal level. And I think not only do we have the ability to do it, but in terms of our function on city government, we have the imperative to do it because public safety is one of the most important things that we can do. And there is no place, I think, that public safety hits people more than in their homes. And for these renters, these facilities are their homes. And I think the mayor's getting anxious, so I will quit now.
Is that a segue into a motion?
Yes, I will. I apologize. I will make a motion that we pass the ordinance as presented.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Okay, at this point, I think we have talked about this at length. An aye vote is in favor, and nay obviously is opposed. Okay, the motion carries 6-1. There's one nay to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Lauer.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And Tom, I don't think you want to go very far because we've got item 8B. You're really on showtime tonight here, aren't you?
I think this is much shorter.
Yeah, well, it's going to have to be, I guess. Consideration of an ordinance, adopting an ordinance approving the PMO mobile home park. And there's a brief presentation by you, and then we have at least budgeted a 10-minute council discussion.
And this came before the council in July. There were several items that PMO agreed to do. One of them that they hesitated on was providing a stormwater agreement between PMO and the neighboring mobile home park where they share a stormwater system. And consequently, the council voted no that evening. They have since come back. They're meeting all the terms. They have provided a stormwater agreement. Both sides have signed it. We've reviewed it. Engineering has reviewed it. We believe it accomplishes everything that represented our concerns at the time. So staff again endorses, recommends in favor of a positive vote to approve the PMO Mobile Home Park site plan. This would allow them then to proceed to applying for a license, which they've already started a mobile home park, and this would allow them to actually get the license that's required for that.
Alderman Sage.
I'll make a quick comment, Mayor, and then a motion. Tom, I just want to say thank you because I know that this involved a fair amount of staff time to go back and get the parties to the table, and so I know that took a lot of extra effort on your part and your staff's part. So thank you. So Mayor, I will move for adoption of the motion as presented.
Okay, moved by Alderman Sage. Is there a second?
I will second. And
Second by Alderwoman Burgess, and you want to make a comment?
just a quick one. I'm very glad to see this is coming back to council and that it has a positive resolution. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, an aye vote is in favor. Nay vote, of course, is opposed. The motion carries 6-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. We move on to item 8C, consideration of adoption of an ordinance approving a budget amendment, and there's a review of bids and approval of a contract with Stark Excavating for demolition of the Sugar Creek plant and the Havco building. And bid number 2016-29, I will turn this over to our city manager, assistant city manager, excuse me.
I think we've got a map here for you. Perfect. That's good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor, and given that I'm the last item on the agenda, I'll be brief. This is the demolition of the property immediately to the south of the library. If you recall, we purchased this a number of months ago with the idea of ultimately having to demolish it. What we're asking in this ordinance then is that we adopt a budget amendment to complete the money to pay for it, and then also that we will recommend to you that we award this contract to Stark Excavating, Incorporated for the demolition of both the Sugar Creek Packing Plant, which is the building on the left as you see it, 410 East Street, and also the Havco building, which is the one you see to the right at 401 South Prairie. The one at 401 South Prairie we've had for a number of years and had tried to demolish it a couple of years ago, and that was not successfully completed. So both of these are put into this packet together so that that area will be completely demolished and then will be available for future use. I would like to make a note about the bid package. There is one thing in your packet that is slightly incorrect, and that was that one of the unsuccessful bidders, Demolition Excavating Company, was said that they did not have the proof of apprenticeship and training in the packet, and they did not when we put this packet out, but just since they have the packet has been put out, they did include that information, but it came in after the packet was done, and after careful review, staff has determined that that still was not completely adequate, and so we're recommending that the bid go to Stark Excavating as the lowest responsible bidder. I put those pictures up there for you to look at, and it contributes to several projects that are ongoing. As you know, the library is talking about expanding south, and we're getting ready to do some requests for proposals for moving the public works garages and all of that area to some better use. So all of this contributes to future projects that we're working on, and it also helps remove that blight, because as you come in to the city, both on Main or on East Street, there is a great deal of property down there that if it was probably owned by somebody else, we would ask that it be condemned and demolished, and so we really would be good in requiring the same of ourselves since we're the owners there. So that summarizes where we are here, and we're asking that we move forward with the demolition and award the bid to Stark Excavating, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions or motion? Okay, motion?
I'm sorry. I do have a question, but I'll make a motion first that we accept this as presented to us.
Is there a second? Second by Alderman Milwaukee.
Would you,
Questions, I'm
thank
sorry.
you. Just a brief question, Steve. Thank you very much. Remind us what Havco was?
That came before my time, and so I don't know. I'll have to ask someone who was here before then. Mr. Hales, do you remember that?
I don't know all the history, but you might recall there was a time when we did bring to the council approved a bid to demolish two buildings. This one, and then a second one over there by the rail yards that I think was the old water operations center. Unfortunately, we got into a situation where the contractor ran into asbestos and other contaminants. The costs, we got into a dispute with that individual. Also, they were unable to continue to complete. There was a settlement. We got the one building down, but there was not enough money left and available to go back and address this Havco building. It has been used for storage of some public works parts, you know, sewer, water, things of that nature. But again, it's, as Steve said, its condition is such that probably would be condemned in today's world. And really, it would be better from a safety standpoint to raise it similar to the Sugar Creek packaging plant as well.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh, Kevin?
I just got a comment. I voted against purchase of this property originally. I asked the question how much this would cost to remediate. Once we did, that wasn't satisfactorily answered prior to purchasing it, prior to the vote. Now we're doubling that price, and I have very strong reservations about what this is going to cost in the end. Did we talk to the contractor about any overages? He was going to revise this after the fact? Is that in this contract at all?
No, I think the city manager was talking about a previous situation, not this one.
Okay.
I think that was just a bit of a
That's
misunderstanding.
correct.
That's not,
That's correct.
I mean, I think that's not Stark.
Understand, and I'm familiar, I did read the packet.
No, I mean, I think it was a question that was asked to
Oh,
the
you
city
already
manager.
answered that.
Well, maybe I
I guess
misunderstand.
it wasn't my understanding.
Mr. Hales, can you?
Are you referring to the Sugar Creek packaging plant?
Well, either one of these buildings, they're both a problem, I understand that.
Right, right. The Halfco building was the subject of a prior contract about it 1 or 2 years ago.
Right.
When 2 buildings were going to be demolished. Only one got demolished under that contract. So now we're coming back a second time to raise the Halfco building, and then the Sugar Creek packaging plant has been added to it.
Right. In this
Okay.
contract, is there anything that basically holds the contractor to the line? Or is he going to come back and need remediation for additional expenses because he found something in the process that we were not expecting?
I will say unlikely, but there's never a guarantee, but there has been extensive investigation, I think, for asbestos or any other contaminants in both the Havco, Sugar Creek. So that has been thoroughly looked at. So hopefully we've identified any and all additional costs that are needed prior to the raising of the buildings. And again, you never have a 100% guarantee
Understand.
that they may not run into things that maybe were not identified through testing. Steve, anything else you can add?
I
The
would only
contract
say
on
that that's absolutely correct, and we take a very hard look at any change orders that come to these. These are professional construction companies and demolishing companies, and when they submit their bid, they understand very well what is in there, and we will take a very hard look at any change orders.
Okay, because we've seen change orders. I mean, we have a history here. We know this. And I just don't want to see the price tag keep going up and up. Boy, it's expensive. Thank you.
Okay. All right, at this point then, wait a minute, we need to change this. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. An aye vote is in favor, of course, and a nay vote would be against the contract. I don't think everybody's voted. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, there it is. The motion carries 7-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. And at this point, excuse me. Sorry. Mr. Hales, City Manager, discussion, comment?
Thank you, Mayor. The mayor and I, as we've been talking about the next meeting of the council, which is the Committee of the Whole, which will be a week from tomorrow night. Keep in mind that because of the holiday, Martin Luther King holiday, will be meeting on Tuesday night, the 19th. Did leave you some information here tonight having to do with the main topic for that night, and that is all things related to the budget task force, the recommendations, and more importantly, if you go back to the back part of this, don't have to necessarily look at it, but the efforts of Alderman Schmidt and I think others. Not only was there a spreadsheet prepared listing about 33 items, the council then went and did some voting as to which items of the task force recommendations did they put a higher priority on the staff proceeding with and addressing. There is a document here that indicates that there was 4 items that had 7 or more votes. And in the sick leave buyback, downtown hireback, cost recovery, golf operational changes, and the BCPA changes. And then there was 3 to 6 votes. And then as it continues, 1 to 2 votes, there was some with no votes. As the mayor and I have talked about this agenda topic for next week, we thought that the one we would bring back to you for a little further discussion by the council, a couple of topics. One, you might recall the downtown hireback. There was a presentation, a number of options. Staff is trying to narrow that down, so the council will have a couple of options. We hope you can narrow that down and give us direction how you want us to continue to proceed on that. BCPA changes also, we see that as a topic for discussion. The difficulty we're having as staff is the recommendations or different recommendations were a mixed bag from the Budget Task Force. Everything from sell buildings to outsource to cut their budget, et cetera, et cetera. So there is no clarity, no specificity for myself and staff right now to really try to understand what might be the direction of the council, if any, on what might be further work you would have us to do. But once again, our thought was that meeting would be one where there's very little in the way of staff presentations. We turn it more back over to the council for you to continue to give direction to us, especially since we've been trying to address these higher priority items as per some of your votes. We also have a recommendation to bring back on solid waste a single budget fee for brush, which is narrowly focused. So anyway, I thought it might be helpful to just put in your hands again the material that more than likely will go out later this week. And then I'll be happy to turn it over to the council, but we see this as really a discussion you will drive in that committee of the whole, preparatory of the work on the fiscal year 2017 budget. So, Mayor, would you like to offer any other comments about our discussion?
No, absolutely. I think
next
that, and if you've got other things that, be prepared to come and discuss, share your ideas with everyone. And obviously, the more specific direction that we can give to David as he's putting together the budget and to our directors, obviously, the better. So I think I have nothing yet. That was very well summed up. Thank you.
What time is that meeting?
Anything?
5:30?
5:30, yeah,
sorry.
I just happened to look at my
Just
calendar. It was also on the
for
wrong
kind of a
day, so I just
2-hour
wanted to make
time.
sure that's the case. All right, thank you. And the only thing that I have is I want to thank our city workers and Public Works and Parks and Rec for stepping up to the plate with this unusual situation that we had. When I was that Monday morning, where we had the worst situation, where we had so many trees coming down, I was trying to get to City Hall from my house. I came on Washington, and there was a massive tree that had clearly fallen down. I don't know, it looked like 100 feet tall, 80 feet or something, massive. And then saw that street was blocked off. I went down Grove, that was blocked off. I finally got through on Oakland, and then coming back, Oakland was blocked off because we had so many issues. But thank you all for being creative and stepping up to the plate to provide quality services to our citizens in as timely fashion as possible. Thank you all so much. Aldermanic comments. Alderwoman Burgess.
Can I ask a question? When we have work sessions like we did tonight, can we start building in some time for public comment? We're consistently, I think, running short on time, and like this evening's meeting, the time allocated didn't anticipate any public comment. Maybe we just put 10, 15 minutes in. Just a thought.
Mostly
I don't-
because it hasn't happened. I think we hadn't done that. Obviously, it was something that was perilous today. So, not by perilous, we were getting really tight and squeezed. So, thank you. That's an excellent point. Yeah, I think David and I will talk about that and include that. Alderman Lauer?
Just to add to Alderman Burgess' comment, I actually had some complaints about the system that we have, getting the cards in the boxes and when and how, and there's some new speakers tonight, some folks we haven't seen before or for some time, and they're confused. And so, again, I wonder if there's not some way that we could have somebody out there to help them around.
I think, Cherry, you had...
I know she tries, but we're spreading her kind of thin, sir.
Right, but tight budget.
Well, I understand
So
that.
we'll just, maybe as much as possible before the meeting, try to direct people there. Okay. Alderman Black.
Thank you. And I just wanted to highlight, we have some Wesleyan interns here that are going to be helping us out with our comp plan. We had our first initial meeting last week. If you guys want to stand up,
Yeah.
I know you're going to hate me for it.
And get an applause, because
Yeah,
they're
right.
working for
They're going to be working for us, yes. So staff has been very helpful in getting these guys up and running here. I know we got a lot of work coming up on the comp plan in the short term, and one of the things we continue to hear about is how we can leverage our students and our university here to help save some money and give us some really valuable research. And I'm really excited, looking forward to working with them, and hope they're excited and know what they're getting into with us. So welcome, guys. Yeah, right?
And we've got a couple other Wesleyan students here as an observer and as someone who's working in our Public Works Department. Anyway, thank you all very much. At that point, is there a motion to adjourn? Very quickly moved by Alderman Black. Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. All in favor signify by saying aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Nice job on